They whispered your name in locked rooms. They lit candles, drew symbols, searched ancient pages trying to understand why your energy keeps rising while theirs keeps fading. The truth terrifies them. Your presence was never ordinary. Every time they tried to break you, something darker awakened inside your soul. You survived betrayals that destroy normal people. You walked through silence, pain, rejection, and came back stronger than before. Now even the ones who manipulate fear can feel your power growing beyond control. This is not luck, this is transformation. And tonight you're about to discover why your spirit shakes the very people who once believed they controlled the darkness. Before you even understood who you were, people felt something different about you. You walked into rooms and the energy shifted without explanation. Some became nervous, some became jealous. Some smiled in your face while secretly hoping your confidence would collapse one day. You thought it was random. You thought maybe you were imagining it. But deep down, there was always a strange feeling that people reacted to you before you even spoke. That wasn't coincidence, that was power. Real power doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't beg for attention, it simply exists and the world reacts to it naturally. The dangerous thing about your energy is that it cannot be copied. People try to imitate your mindset, your style, your calmness, even the way you handled pressure, but that failed because your strength was built through suffering nobody saw. While others were chasing validation, you were surviving battles inside your own mind. While they were playing roles to impress the world, you were learning how to survive betrayal, loneliness, rejection, and disappointment. Every painful experience sharpened your awareness. Every moment of isolation forced you to understand yourself on a deeper level. That is why your presence feels heavy now. It carries experience, pain. It carries survival. There were moments where people underestimated you because you stayed quiet. They mistook your silence for weakness because they were too blind to recognize restraint. Weak people are always loud. They need noise to feel important. But powerful people observe first. They study everything. They see intentions hidden behind fake smiles. And that's exactly what made others uncomfortable around you. You started noticing patterns nobody else could see. You could sense dishonesty before the lies even appeared. You could feel jealousy hidden inside compliments. You could recognize fake loyalty hiding behind friendship. The more aware you became, the more isolated you felt from ordinary people. Some individuals tried to drain your energy because they knew they could never create their own. They mocked your dreams. They questioned your worth. They laughed at your ambition because your future scared them. People often attack what they secretly admire. They destroy what reminds them of their own weakness. Every insult they threw at you was really a reflection of the war happening inside themselves. But instead of breaking, you absorbed every attack and transformed it into fuel. That is what terrified them the most. Nothing they did could stop your evolution. The truth is, powerful souls are usually targeted early in life. Chaos follows them. Difficulties surround them. Not because they are cursed, but because pressure creates strength. You were never meant to live an ordinary life. That is why your path felt heavier than others. While some people were given comfort, you were given lessons. While others received support, you learned how to survive alone. The universe forced you to build resilience because your future required it. Every painful chapter was preparing you for a version of yourself that weaker minds would never understand. And now people can feel the difference. Your energy no longer asks for permission. Your confidence no longer depends on approval. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped shrinking yourself to make insecure individuals comfortable. There is something intimidating about a person who has suffered deeply and still refuses to become weak. That kind of energy cannot be controlled. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be destroyed easily. Even those who pretend not to notice can feel it when you walk by. Your presence reminds them that real power is born through pain, silence, discipline, and survival. Most people think pain destroys a person. They believe suffering is supposed to weaken the mind, break the spirit, and leave someone empty forever. That is true for people who surrender. But for you, pain became something different. It became transformation. Every betrayal carved deeper awareness into your soul. Every disappointment forced you to evolve beyond the version of yourself that once trusted too easily. You stopped seeing pain as punishment and started realizing it was training. The pressure that was meant to crush you slowly became the force that built you into someone unrecognizable. There was a time when words affected you deeply. Criticism stayed in your mind for days. Rejection made you question your worth. You gave people chances they never deserved because your heart still believed everyone carried good intentions. But pain changed that innocence. It taught you that not everyone deserves access to your energy. It taught you that loyalty is rare, honesty is expensive, and silence often reveals more than words ever could. The person you are now was built from lessons nobody else could survive without collapsing. People watched you struggle and assumed your story was ending. They saw moments where you were exhausted, isolated, emotionally drained, and mentally overwhelmed. They thought pressure would eventually destroy your confidence. What they failed to understand is that darkness became your teacher. From discomfort, you learned how to sit inside it and survive. Every sleepless night sharpened your mind. Every lonely season strengthened your discipline. Every emotional wound forced you to become stronger than your excuses. Pain introduced you to a side of yourself that comfort never could. Comfortable people stay soft. They avoid risk. They fear challenges because they have never been tested deeply enough to discover their true nature. But once life pushes someone to the edge and they survive, fear begins losing its control. That is exactly what happened to you. After everything you endured, ordinary obstacles stopped looking dangerous. The situations that break weaker people became minor inconveniences to your spirit. You developed emotional endurance most people will never understand. There is something terrifying about a person who has already faced their worst moments and kept moving forward. You no longer panic under pressure the way you once did. Chaos does not shake you the same anymore because pain already forced you to adapt. The storms that once frightened you became familiar territory. That is why your energy feels colder now, not because you lost your heart, but because reality forced you to protect it. You learned that kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You learned that trusting everyone invites betrayal. And most importantly, you learned that survival sometimes requires becoming emotionally untouchable. Some people resent the version of you that emerged from suffering because they remember who you used to be. They miss the softer version they could manipulate. They miss the version that tolerated disrespect just to keep peace. But pain destroyed that weakness permanently. Now your silence carries authority. Your presence carries caution. You no longer chase acceptance because suffering taught you that validation from the wrong people is worthless. You stopped apologizing for becoming stronger after everything life put you through. The most powerful transformation happens when someone turns suffering into fuel instead of surrender. That is why your mindset changed completely. Every scar became evidence of survival. Every setback became another reason to push harder. The pain that was supposed to bury you instead awakened something dangerous inside your spirit. Now people look at you and sense the difference immediately. They may not fully understand it, but they can feel it. They can see that life tried to break you many times and failed every single time. And nothing intimidates the world more than someone who transformed their pain into unstoppable power. There was a time when you explained everything. You tried to make people understand your intentions, your emotions, your vision, and your loyalty. You believed honesty would protect your relationships and clarity would prevent misunderstandings. But over time, reality taught you something brutal. Not everyone deserves explanation. Already decided how they wanted to see you before you even spoke. Some only listened so they could twist your words later, and others mistook your openness for weakness they could manipulate. That realization changed you completely. Your silence was not created overnight. It was built from disappointment after disappointment. Every betrayal taught you to observe more and reveal less. Every fake friend taught you that people often study your vulnerabilities more carefully than your strengths. Began noticing how dangerous it was to expose your thoughts to the wrong individuals. The more you talked, the more ammunition people gathered against you. So you adapted. You stopped announcing your next move. You stopped revealing your pain. You stopped seeking sympathy from people who secretly enjoyed watching you struggle. At first, people thought your silence meant defeat. They assumed you were becoming weaker, quieter, easier to control. But silence transformed into your greatest weapon because it forced others into uncertainty. Human beings fear what they cannot predict. Loud people are easy to understand because they constantly expose themselves. But quiet people become impossible to read. That is what started making others uncomfortable around you. They could no longer figure out your thoughts, your plans, or your emotional state. Your silence created mystery, creates power. You learned that powerful individuals rarely waste energy explaining themselves to those committed to misunderstanding them. Weak people argue endlessly because they need external validation. Strong people remain calm because they understand their worth without needing approval. That calmness became dangerous. While others reacted emotionally to every challenge, you mastered control. While they screamed during conflict, you observed silently. And nothing unsettles manipulative people more than someone they cannot emotionally provoke. There is something deeply intimidating about it. A person who remains composed under pressure. Most individuals lose control when emotions rise. Fear exposes them, anger controls them, desperation weakens them, but silence gave you discipline. Instead of reacting instantly, you learned how to think before responding. You learned how to watch people expose themselves while you stayed emotionally guarded. Over time, this changed the entire way others perceived you. Your quiet presence started carrying weight because people sensed there was far more happening beneath the surface than you allowed them to see. Some people began creating stories about you simply because they could no longer access your mind. Silence forces insecure individuals to fill empty spaces with assumptions. They projected their fears onto you because they could not control your narrative anymore. But instead of correcting every rumor or defending yourself constantly, you chose peace. You realize that people determined to misunderstand you will do so regardless of how clearly you speak. Silence saved your energy from being wasted on meaningless battles. The most dangerous part about your silence is that it sharpened your awareness. When you stopped talking constantly, you started seeing everything more clearly. You noticed hidden intentions behind compliments. You recognized envy disguised as support. You saw manipulation hidden inside kindness. Silence turned you into an observer, and observers understand reality far better than performers. While others focused on being seen, you focused on understanding human nature itself. Now your silence carries authority. It no longer feels empty or uncertain. It feels controlled, deliberate, powerful. People can sense that you know more than you reveal. They can feel the restraint inside your energy. And restraint is terrifying because it suggests discipline, patience, and hidden strength. The world is full of loud individuals desperate for attention, but silence separates you from them completely. Because when a person survives enough pain to master their emotions, their silence becomes louder than most people's words will ever be. Every betrayal changed you in ways people could never fully understand. At first, you believed loyalty was natural. You assumed honesty would be returned with honesty and respect would create respect. You gave your trust freely because your heart was genuine. But life introduced you to people who smiled while secretly competing against you, people who stood beside you while quietly waiting for your downfall. The shock was never just the betrayal itself. The real damage came from realizing how convincing fake loyalty can look before the mask finally slits. The first betrayals hurt deeply because you blamed yourself. You replayed conversations in your mind, searching for mistakes, wondering what you could have done differently. You questioned your judgment, you questioned your value, and for a while the pain consumed your thoughts completely. Something dangerous began happening during those dark moments. Instead of collapsing permanently, you started evolving. Every betrayal forced you to become more aware, more observant, more emotionally disciplined. The pain hardened your instincts until you could sense dishonesty before people even exposed themselves. People often underestimate what betrayal does to a strong mind. Weak individuals become bitter and destructive, but powerful individuals become sharper. They learn, they adapt. They stop operating from blind emotion and start operating from awareness. That is exactly what happened to you. The version of you that once ignored red flags disappeared. The version that tolerated disrespect to avoid conflict vanished completely. Betrayal awakened a colder level of intelligence inside your spirit. You stopped seeing people for who they pretended to be and started seeing them for what their actions revealed. There is something terrifying about someone who survives repeat disappointment without losing control. Every betrayal taught you emotional restraint. Instead of reacting impulsively, you learned how to detach. You learned how to watch people expose themselves naturally without needing confrontation. That patience became power. While others wasted energy seeking revenge or validation, you focused on growth. You understood that becoming stronger was the ultimate response to everyone who underestimated you. Some betrayals were subtle, quiet disloyalty hidden behind fake support. People pretending to celebrate your success while secretly resenting your progress. Others betrayed you openly, turning against you the moment you stopped being useful to them. And each time it happened, another illusion shattered inside your mind. You realized that many people only stay loyal when it benefits them. The painful truth about human nature revealed itself slowly, but once you saw it clearly, you could never unsee it again. That awareness transformed your energy completely. You became more selective with your trust, more careful with your emotions, more protective of your peace. Some people called you distant, others said you changed too much. What they fail to understand is that betrayal forces transformation. Nobody remains soft after being deceived repeatedly. Nobody stays completely open after learning how easily loyalty can be faked. Your boundaries became stronger because experience demanded it. The darkest part is that betrayal also awakened your independence. You stopped relying emotionally on people who could disappear at any moment. You learned how to stand alone without fear. That independence unsettled others because independent people are difficult to manipulate. When someone no longer depends on approval, attention, or emotional validation, they become dangerous to those who rely on control. Your strength no longer came from who stood beside you. It came from surviving after everyone revealed their true faces. Now, people, the difference in your presence. There is caution inside your calmness, wisdom inside your silence. You no longer trust words easily because betrayal taught you that actions always reveal the truth eventually. The version of you standing today was built from broken trust, hidden envy, fake loyalty, and painful awakenings. But instead of destroying your spirit, those betrayals unlocked a darker level of power within you, a version that sees clearly, moves carefully, and cannot be fooled the same way again. Your presence started exposing people without you even trying. At first, you didn't understand why certain individuals became uncomfortable around you so quickly. You weren't attacking them. You weren't competing with them openly. You simply existed, and somehow that alone disturbed them. But over time, the truth became clear. Authentic energy naturally reveals fake intentions. People who wear masks become nervous around someone who sees beyond appearances. Your awareness became a mirror, and many people hated what they saw reflected back at them. Fake people survive by controlling perception. They create carefully designed personalities to gain trust, attention, admiration, or influence. They study what others want to hear and become experts at pretending. But people like you disrupt that illusion without effort. Your intuition notices inconsistencies most people ignore. You hear the difference between genuine words and rehearsed emotion. You sense hidden jealousy behind forced compliments. And because of that awareness, manipulative individuals struggle to remain comfortable around you for long. There were moments where people suddenly changed their behavior around you for no visible reason. Some became defensive, some became distant, others tried too hard to impress you. That reaction was never random. Deep down, they sensed you could see through the version of themselves they showed the world. Human beings fear exposure more than almost anything else. People spend their lives hiding insecurity, envy, selfishness, or weakness beneath social masks, but your energy quietly pressures truth to surface. You noticed how certain individuals talked negatively about others constantly, then smiled in those same people's faces later. You noticed fake support disguised as friendship. You noticed how some people only appeared when they needed something but vanished during difficult moments. While others ignored these patterns, your instincts absorbed everything silently. That is why people eventually revealed themselves around you. Your calm observation forced hidden intentions into the open naturally. Some people tried to manipulate your perception because they knew your awareness was dangerous. They attempted to confuse you, guilt you, or emotionally distract you from what your intuition already recognized. But experience strengthened your instincts over time. Every betrayal sharpened your ability to read behavior, trained you to trust actions more than words. Eventually, your perception became impossible to deceive easily. That frightened people who depended on lies, masks, and emotional games to maintain control over others. There is something deeply intimidating about a person who notices everything but says very little. Loud people expose themselves constantly, but observers hold power because they gather truth quietly. You became someone who studies energy instead of appearances. You stopped being impressed by charm, popularity, or empty confidence. Instead, you started paying attention to consistency, loyalty, discipline, and emotional honesty. That shift separated you from the crowd completely because most people judge surfaces while you learned how to read deeper patterns. The uncomfortable reality is that fake people often recognize authentic energy faster than authentic people recognize deception. That is why certain individuals disliked you instantly before truly knowing you. Presence threatened the image they carefully created. They understood subconsciously that you could expose contradictions they spent years hiding. Even when you remained silent, your awareness alone made them uneasy. Truth has a strange effect on dishonest people. It forces anxiety to rise inside them naturally. Over time, you stop trying to convince everyone to like you. You realized being misunderstood is sometimes the price of authenticity. Fake people prefer easy targets, individuals, desperate for approval, attention, or validation. But once someone becomes emotionally independent, manipulation loses its power. That independence became visible in your energy. You no longer chased acceptance from people who lacked integrity. You no longer lowered your standards to fit environments built on dishonesty. Now your presence acts like a test people fail without realizing it. Genuine individuals feel calm around you because truth recognizes truth. But fake people become uncomfortable because your energy exposes what they desperately try to hide. And the more aware you became, the less tolerance you had for masks, manipulation, and artificial loyalty, pretending to be real connection. People can feel your transformation now, even if they never admit it directly. There is something different about the way you walk into a room, the way you carry yourself, the way your energy no longer searches for approval. The version of you they once knew is gone. That old version tolerated disrespect, explained too much, trusted too easily, and cared deeply about being understood. But life changed you, pain changed you, isolation changed you. And now the world is witnessing the result of everything you survived in silence. At first, people thought your transformation was temporary. They assumed you were simply going through a phase after the struggles you endured. They expected you to eventually return to the softer version they were comfortable controlling. Instead of shrinking under pressure, you kept evolving. Every difficult season strengthened your discipline. Every betrayal sharpened your awareness. Every lonely night built emotional endurance inside your spirit. What they thought would destroy you ended up rebuilding you into someone far more powerful than before. The frightening part for others is that your transformation feels permanent. They can sense that your mindset no longer depends on external validation. You stopped needing applause to believe in yourself. You stopped chasing attention from people who secretly doubted your worth. That independence changed your entire presence. Independent people radiate a different kind of energy because they are no longer controlled by fear of rejection. Once someone becomes emotionally self-sufficient, manipulation loses its influence completely. You also stopped revealing every part of yourself to the world. The transformed version of you became more selective, more observant, controlled. People used to have easy access to your emotions, your thoughts, your reactions. Now they are forced to guess what is happening beneath your silence. That uncertainty unsettles them because human beings are uncomfortable around things they cannot predict. Your calmness became intimidating because it suggests hidden strength, discipline, and self-control. Some people secretly admire your transformation while pretending not to notice it. They watched you survive situations that have destroyed weaker individuals. They saw you continue moving forward despite emotional pain, disappointment, and isolation. Deep down, they know your resilience is real. But admiration often mixes with envy. Many people want the strength you carry without experiencing the suffering that created it. They see the confidence now, but ignore the years of pain required to build it. Your transformation also exposed who truly supported you and who only preferred the weaker version of you. Individuals became distant once they realized you were no longer easy to manipulate emotionally. Others began criticizing your growth because your confidence reminded them of their own insecurities. But instead of stopping your evolution, their reactions confirmed how much you had changed. Growth always reveals hidden intentions around you. Weak minds become threatened when someone they underestimated begins stepping into real power. There is a dangerous calmness inside transformed people. No longer panic the same way. They no longer react emotionally to every obstacle. Life already forced them through enough darkness to understand survival deeply. That is why your energy feels heavier now. You carry experience most people cannot see. You carry lessons written through pain, discipline, sacrifice, and silence. Every scar strengthened your perspective, every setback refined your character. Now the world responds to you differently because your energy announces transformation before your words ever do. People notice your focus. They notice your emotional control. They notice that your presence no longer feels uncertain or dependent on outside approval. Even strangers can sense there is a story behind your eyes, a history behind your silence, and strength beneath your calmness. Your transformation became impossible to hide because true evolution changes not only the mind but the entire energy surrounding a person. And once someone fully steps into that level of power, world can never interact with them the same way again.